Thank you, President Paxson. Thank you, Chancellor Moynihan. Thank you to all the faculty and deans. But mainly, thank you to you, class of 2026. Good afternoon and congratulations. I stand here in awe. Oh my gosh, I really do. Not just at this milestone of your accomplishments, but at the wondrous continuity of it all. Tomorrow, those Van Wickle gates will swing open and you will walk through the inverted sock, which I promise will make sense once you've done it. And you will go out into the world as Brunonians have done for more than a quarter of a millennium. And as you leave this campus community to embark on a new phase in your lives, you'll be joining me in a different kind of Brown citizenry as alumni. And so in addition to my congratulations, I also say welcome. Nearly 30 years ago, I sat in this very church myself, full of the same excitement and joy, and dare I say, uncertainty, I'm sure many of you are feeling now. But while those feelings are universal, when I look out into these pews, I'm struck that each of you sitting here represents the culmination of a unique journey, each with its own distinct triumphs and challenges. And though I'm truly honored at the chance to get to speak with you, the truth of the matter is, if left to my own devices, I'd much prefer to be hearing your Brown stories than telling you mine. But I suppose it's this very proclivity that's led me to this podium today. I am what one might consider a compulsively curious person. I need and want to not just know about the world and its inhabitants around me, I desperately want to understand it all. Today, this is considered a virtue of my writing of both fact and fiction. But growing up in working class Brooklyn, this trait of mine was spoken about a bit more derisively. I was not seen as precocious or praised for being inquisitive. I was simply considered a very nosy child. And my constant desire for more information was a source of dismay for my grandparents who raised me. For as long as I can remember, when presented with nearly any kind of information, no matter how benign, I wanted to understand why. And so I asked, why did I need to eat lentils every week? Why had my uncle been laid off from his job? Why did my cousin Liz and her boyfriend break up? Questioning is lifeblood to democracy, but our household was a benevolent dictatorship. Inquiry was seen as dissent, so it wasn't uncommon for my questions of why to be met with the reply in a very South Brooklyn manner, because why is a crooked letter. But all that did was make me determined to know what in fact had led why astray. My doggedness eventually wore them down. What they couldn't answer, the local librarians did. Lentils had a lot of iron. My uncle's company was offshoring his job. Why, it turns out, is a double operative working for both the vowels and the consonants. As for my cousin Liz's breakup, that remained a mystery. As a teen, my curiosity rendered me a bit rebellious. It wasn't that I didn't want to do what was told. I simply wanted to understand the rationale behind the rules. Why was I required to take chemistry when what I was really interested in was marine biology? Why did teenagers have to pay income taxes before they were able to vote? And most pressingly, why did I still have a curfew when nobody else did? I'll admit that sometimes when the answers proved insufficient, I didn't always follow the rules, particularly regarding the curfew. When it came time for college, Brown felt as if it was my only option. You and your questions will fit right in, my high school principal remarked. He was right. At Brown, my curiosity was no longer a curiosity, but a common trait. The academic freedom of the open curriculum was catnip for precocious minds. Each class prompting new questions of how and why that would lead you to swing from one vine of academic inquiry to the next, as your hungry mind attempted to stitch together at least some semblance of understanding of how things worked. As for my classmates, I learned the art of asking the follow-up question. To a statement made in a lecture, to a point made by a TA, even a poster on your dorm room wall could prompt an inquisition of the best kind. And because of this boundless curiosity, conversations often went long and deep, such that when our time on this campus was over, even when people lost touch, what lingered was that deep sense of knowing one another, the kind of knowing that melts time, even after decades apart. Curiosity is a trait most closely associated with children, but it's actually present in most mammals. William James, the philosopher and psychologist, defined curiosity as the animalistic impulse towards better cognition. Animals are driven to seek knowledge primarily for extrinsic reasons, to serve a survival purpose. But scientists have posited that, unlike other species, only humans are distinct in being nosy simply for the sake of being nosy. We're intrinsically drawn to seek knowledge for no utilitarian goal, or at least not a directly obvious one, but I'll get back to that. You graduate into strange times, a fact I probably don't need to point out to any of you. And in this regard, I'm so happy I was asked to be here today, because no matter what happens to you in the next year or two, you can hold in the back of your mind that my path to this podium and a cultural career that puts me in the public eye was neither direct, nor did it get off to a particularly glamorous start. In 1999, Career Services was a room in Pembroke Hall full of binders organized by industry, each full of printouts listing entry-level positions and numbers you could fax your resume to apply. The first paying job I could find in the arts was hawking vintage French posters in Soho, but really the place made its money doing custom framing for fine art. With my student loan soon due, I took the job. On the surface, it just kind of stunk. It didn't really utilize my degree, it wasn't intellectually challenging, the pay was low, and the skills I acquired, like how to do a mail merge, were not only mundane, they are now technologically obsolete. And perhaps worst of all, at least to my 21-year-old Ivy League alumni brain, when out in the world, the job didn't sound particularly impressive. And yet, because of my insatiable curiosity, this era proved to be one of the most formative of my life. I met interior designers and art gallery managers and fine artists and private art dealers and actors and directors and creative directors, all redecorating loft apartments. I interacted with executive assistants and personal assistants and bankers and lawyers and magazine editors and nightclub promoters. I got to know art handlers and framers and craftspeople, and everyone I met, I asked questions of. What their job was like, how they got there, what they hated about it, what they love. I observed how different people dressed and the periodicals they read, the restaurants and clubs they went to, the art they liked. And bit by bit, month by month, from this corner shop on Broome Street, this kind of nothing job allowed me a chance to piece together an understanding of the cultural nexus of New York City, then the center of the world. Through all my inquiry and observation, what developed was another invaluable trait: discernment, good judgment about people and opportunities, a sense of knowing what things are for me and what things are not. It is also, for what it's worth, the root of having taste and an aesthetic, a unique point of view. But you cannot cultivate discernment without first practicing curiosity. The movie version of this story would have me land my dream job through a connection I made in this fancy frame shop. I'd identify the right person, ask a clever question, and, impressed, they'd bestow upon me my big break. But that would be very 2026. It would confuse extrinsic curiosity, seeking information for some sort of strategic gain, with intrinsic curiosity, being nosy for the sake of being nosy. Both can yield rewards, the latter being less direct, but nonetheless fruitful. What actually happened was, after 6 months in that shop, fully immersed in the world of downtown New York, and frankly, oozing with the kind of confidence only a girl below 14th Street could conjure, I applied for an interesting job in advertising and got hired immediately. Yes, they liked my art history degree and my ability to mail merge, but what they loved, what they noted in the interview, was that they needed somebody quote unquote cool who understood the city and wasn't afraid to make quick decisions. Throughout my life, my natural curiosity has continued to alchemize even the dullest of circumstances into learning opportunities. So I don't really believe that we seek knowledge for no reason, for it is true inquiry that leads us towards understanding, and understanding ourselves, those around us, is a human need. My Brown education gave me a critical thinking skills and refined my ability to make an argument. But it is the trait that brought me to Brown, the spirit of wanting to know, that has given me a life full of joy and surprises, a form of success that no job can promise and no title can ever encapsulate. Like you, I graduated in a time of technological advancement. I went out into the world roughly around the same time that web search, Google, became widely available. How thrilling for the curious mind, the answer to nearly any question just a few keyboard strokes away. But I have also observed over the ensuing decades how having such easy access to answers has conflated the retrieving of information with true understanding, and how the certainty of fast facts has replaced the uniquely human wonder of wondering why. Curiosity requires vulnerability. To be openly curious, to ask other humans questions, particularly publicly, is to admit all that we do not know. And perhaps this is why, for most people, curiosity declines with age. Not so much because we come to know everything, but because it becomes embarrassing to admit that we don't. But I worry, if I'm being honest, that this sense of shame is coming earlier and earlier for people. That the ease with which we can privately find answers, maybe not the best answers, maybe not the most nuanced or thorough or creative, has cast a pall around publicly pondering, has created a stigma around uncertainty, and has made asking questions, dare I say, cringe. Every graduate of every school has a certain fondness for their fellow alumni. There's a bond in the shared memories of shared spaces and beloved faculty, but you and I, here in this room, out there watching on the screen, or alumni at home, we're not just linked by a set of common memories. We're linked by the shared trait of intellectual curiosity that Brown's distinct culture nurtures so brilliantly. And so, my advice to you, my fellow curious ones, as you commence into the world, is to guard this trait, protect it at all costs. I don't think it's a coincidence that children are both the most openly inquisitive and the happiest humans we tend to see. The world you walk into will demand from you fast answers, and every tool is at your disposal to enable you to provide them. But do not mistake retrieving information for understanding, or the ease of querying an agent for the nuance asking questions of fellow humans can provide. Learn to discern the quick high of checking a task off of a list from the deep satisfaction that comes from digging deeper and truly knowing. And perhaps, above all, learn to be cautiously suspicious of certitude. It almost always means enough questions have not been asked. It is an unpredictable world out there, full of quickly shifting tectonic plates. But class of 2026, I am not worried about you, because your curiosity can be your compass if you cultivate it. So go forth and never forget to keep asking why, and always remember the importance of being nosy. God bless you and good luck.